am here today to talk about Quantum Hosky. Now, I hope you guys are holding on to your butts because this is going to be a fun one. Quantum Hosky. The first question that a lot of people ask me is, what is Quantum Hosky? It's a very difficult question to answer because it is so many things. A good summary, though, is it's Midnight's wackier cousin, in a way. So, fair warning, a little PSA, if you will. All of this is very experimental technology. And it all started with, this guy thinking about Hosky in the shower. And how to make something from this beginning. So, what is Quantum Hosky? Quantum Hosky is a layered metaverse partner chain that's running on a dual token model, pretty similar to what Midnight is doing. Obviously, it's not doing this yet because it's still very much in the planning, experimental technology and all that. It's going to be a 4-dimensional sim crafter MMO. So a multiplayer game that's running a simulated society in a crafting game where people and AIs can play together. It has autonomous AI agents, and I have a pretty cool demo for you that I'm going to show off with how those guys work. It's all running with a quantum beacon. I was planning to do a couple of demos here on stage, but swapping between applications, doing live demos is all very risky. So what I'm going to do instead is afterwards, at the Hosky booth, I'm going to do a live demo of a quantum random number generator. So we have a pretty fun demo that I've planned with this. So if you're around, swing by the Hosky booth around 3 today. In this game, you can mine with your mind, whatever that means. Now that is done via EEG headsets. So I got one of those here. Again, very experimental technology, so we'll figure out how exactly that works. But there's that. And the wildest part about this whole thing is probably the dish brains. Now the dish brains are exactly what you think they are. Real human neuron tissue inside of a device. I have one here, so I'll show this to you a little bit later. And all of this wrapped up into this video game package. So I think it's summarized best. If none of this makes sense, I have a little video that summarizes in a way that most people can understand, I think.
So I've been a bit overwhelmed by all this new information coming out about Quantum Hosky. I'll try to simplify so that the average Hosky holder, the average meme coin degen, can grasp the concept of this never-before-seen gaming world. In this gaming world, you'll have headsets that can read your brainwaves, allowing you to mine with your mind. It'll all take place in a 4D, non-Euclidean world. And everyone knows 4Ds is better than 3. Dish brain NPCs. Brains, harvested in petri dishes, will populate the game, giving it an AI component. Are we going to make it? Yes and no. Quantum randomness will allow the environment to change at any moment. There will be a glacial airdrop to meme coin communities across multiple blockchains. So you'll be playing with both Dishbrain NPCs and fellow degens. In conclusion, users will be able to log in with their brain, interact with AI NPCs, while quantum elements determine the landscape in a 4D non-Euclidean world.
Big shout out to J. Crow over there. So obviously now that you're all on the same page, now everyone understands everything. Now I want to go into a little bit detail, but a lot of people actually surprisingly don't know Hosky yet. So just, oh, there you go. A quick little intro to these guys. Some of you saw them earlier before I came up on stage. They were doing their own little thing. I don't know what that was. I recommend that you scan the QR code, by the way. So what is Hosky? Hosky is a community that puts stickers everywhere. Like, You can see some examples here of where people put stickers sometimes. I don't know, you may have seen some of them around as well today. They also produce some pretty bad memes. But they are an amazing community. It's one of those hangout spots. There's always people in the Hosky Discord. You always feel welcome there. So it's a great community. They make some questionable content, including some GIFs. But they are very real. They're in the real world. They're doing different things, and they always bring the Hosky spirit with them. And it's not just the fun and the memes and this stuff. They actually bring some innovation that's really useful for the space. So these, for example, are proof of onboarding cards, where you take someone who has no idea what Cardano is. 2 minutes later, they have a wallet set up and they have tokens in that wallet. Proof of onboarding. And it's a great onboarding tool. They also support a lot of single stake pool operators. But at the end of the day, I think you may have seen Hosky on Twitter, and he's not afraid to pick a little fight, especially when it comes to governance stuff. He keeps people honest. So this is from last year. He's fighting around with an ape. But luckily, at the end of the day, they always hug it out. So it's a great addition to the Cardano community, and Cardano wouldn't be the same without Hosky. So underlying the project, though, there is some serious tech behind Quantum Hosky. And it's actually reliant on the 5 pillars of the 21st century. So if you go and you should watch Charles's video on this, because it's a really, really interesting topic. But for this project, we're skipping that, and we're focusing on the 5 pillars of fishing minigames, which obviously is you have to sit, you have to cast, then you have to wait, and then when it bites, you have to reel it in. So these are the 5 stages of every single fishing minigame that I've examined, and I have examined at least 20. So they all have all of these 5 elements. So there is a video game. Like, this whole thing is wrapped in and around a video game. And I mentioned that it's going to be 4D survival, SimCrafter MMO. And the 4D thing, it's actually comprised of procedurally generated hypervoxels. Now, we talked about this a little bit yesterday in the podcast, and I recommend you check that out. But the video that you saw here is actually 4-dimensional hypervoxels in an environment that's been procedurally generated. So it's not dynamic yet, you can't play around with it yet, but it is an actual demo of 4D hypervoxels in action. So now we just need to put it in a game engine, and we're good to go. As if it's that easy. Now, in the game, we're going to have autonomous AI agents. It's all going to be influenced by player brainwaves. There's a dish brain that we're going to get to. And there is a quantum beacon that's going to really throw a spanner in the works for people. And all of this is going to be tightly integrated with blockchain components for collaborating and strategizing with the AI agents. So this is what blockchain is really for, right? It's aligning people's incentives and getting them to agree. This is what all of governance has been about, getting different people to agree and align on what the strategy is. But now, some of those people are autonomous AI agents. And some of them are real people. You might not necessarily even know who's who. So the first component.
In this valley, every block laid is a story.
Flow is stable, but we're at 80% capacity. We can push it.
Push it? How?
Where beings of artificial intelligence shape belief.
We re-engineer the existing blades. More power, same flow, 0 disruption. It's time to not just build, we innovate.
This is Sunhaven, a solar punk sanctuary. Agents of code, building futures only they can imagine.
Look around you. We can be trading stars.
What are you talking about?
You get them, I move them. We build our own empire.
As Sunhaven grows, the simulation continues.
The Great Root
Listens. It feels the land. It feels our devotion.
This is the first truth.
Truth? Elara, it's a plant. Nothing more.
You see a machine, I see a soul that connects us all. You just refuse to listen.
Sunhaven, a simulation by Dagger for input-output.
So, what you actually saw here is real autonomous AI agents. What we did is we gave them personalities to begin with, and then we just let them run loose in a civilization that we built in a Minecraft server. So they are actually moving around and generating their own stories. So we did not, tell them what to do. There's no players behind them. They're doing all of this by themselves. So you can see some of them were even prompted to be, slightly outside of the law. And it's, it's generating a pretty interesting society, and like the dynamics at scale that you get from this is pretty exciting. So all of this, by the way, is just an art of the possible, right? Like this isn't how the game is going to look like. This is obviously just a Minecraft server, but it's all about like giving these little tastes of what we're trying to put together in the final product. So there are actually two elements to this that touches on the brain, on your brain. So you have the EEG part, i.e. a device that reads your brain waves, and then you have the dish brain. So the EEG part, I was going to do a demo live on this, but it's pretty finicky and the network isn't great, so what you can do instead is you can go over to the I/O booth, and Marcus is there, and he can let you do a demo of this live, reading your own brain waves right there at the booth. So after this, you should go over and check it out. But what it looks like is approximately like this. So you put this headset on, and it actually reads your brainwaves, and it can tell whether or not you're happy, whether or not you're focused, whether or not you're relaxed. And he actually has a little smart LED thing hooked up to this little crystal ball that changes color based on your mood. Obviously, this is just a little bit of fun and games, but this is just a proof of concept of like getting the technology to do something interesting so that we can put it into the game after. So there's also the dish brain. Now, we are lucky enough to actually have the CEO of Cortical Labs with us. I've got a podcast booth with him just after this, so I recommend you tune into that afterwards. But what he brought is a CL1 unit. It's the actual device that contains the dish brains. So I have one with me here as well on stage. It's a little bit heavy. So obviously there's no actual brain matter in this one at the moment. But Han and his team, they have actual units of this with real brains running in Australia, and he can give you a demo at the booth as well, showing the live view of these things. But inside this device, you can actually see there's a pumping system that's effectively like the heart of this device. There's a waste basket and a nutrient basket, so it's almost like your stomach and maybe what the Hosky team is more familiar with. And then there's a filtration system similar to your kidneys and liver. And all of this is to feed the central computing unit, which is in here, which is a real-life dish brain. It's human neural matter, grown and cultivated inside of a dish, and it's connected to a computer. So you can do read and write and actually train it to do different things. So I have a video here. So this is a video, a visualization of the dish brain. So you can actually see, it's a little bit dark, but here you can see the electrodes that's at the bottom of the dish where the brain is. And here you see an application window that has the game Pong. So you can actually see these are the activity of the brain as it's playing the game of Pong against itself. And you can actually train this using positive and negative feedback, similar to what you would do with an artificial intelligence, but all of it is based on human neurons. This is pretty cool. So I do have to rush through things a little bit, but I mentioned the quantum random number generator. It's this one. This is photon-based. So what you have is you have a photon coming in on one side, and it has a polarity. It's either up or down. And it's a quantum phenomenon, so it has an exactly 50-50 chance of being up or down. Then there's a little filter that it either passes through and hits the detector, or it gets deflected with an exactly 50-50 chance based on the polarity. And this is entirely unpredictable. It is an actual true random number generator. Because most random number generators are actually what we call pseudo-random, where they look random, but they are technically predictable. Like if you know the seed in advance that it's pulling from, you can actually predict the entire sequence of random numbers. So we're going to put this into the game as an entity or a quantum beacon that's going to scramble parts of the game world. So literally selecting a region of the game world and reconstructing the whole region inside. So if you happen to build something inside there, you better have locked that down so it doesn't get scrambled. But the real question here is, how does 4D work? Now, the first thing I want to clarify is that the fourth dimension is not time. It's an actual spatial dimension. So we're working with X, Y, Z, and W. And most importantly, the fourth dimension isn't special in any meaningful sense. I was actually lucky enough to get permission to use this video from Mashpo, the guy that made 4D Miner. Now this is Frank the Frog. Now Frank, he's a 2D being. So he's living in a flat 2D plane. But the 2D plane is actually embedded into a 3D world. And you can see how when you rotate the plane that is in, Frank's view of the world also changes. And what is able to access changes. And you can draw a similar analog to this by our 3D world being a part of the fourth dimension. So you can rotate your 3D view into the fourth dimension. Now, there are some consequences in 4D. So for example, water is pretty weird. Because if you draw an analogy back with Frank here, if one of his friends puts down a bucket of water, and from Frank's point of view, there's a wall in the way, but the water just passes right through it. Because if you rewind this and move into the 3D view, so you see the whole scene, you can see that it isn't actually a full blocker. There are paths around what he sees as a wall, so the water can pass through it. So you have to be very careful to actually close everything off so it doesn't actually leak when you're making things and constructing things in 4 dimensions. Now, there is a pretty interesting 4D aspect as well, which is what we call the volume view. Now, volume view is akin to if you take, instead of having the slice that you're viewing along with the direction of gravity, you flip it on its side. So it's flat, so it's perpendicular. And you can actually see what Frank sees and how it looks from his perspective in the 3D world. Now, this doesn't look very interesting when you have the 2D thing in 3D, but when you go one dimension up, the volume view actually turns into a 3-dimensional space that allows you to see where things are a little bit better. So for example, there's a game called 4D Golf, where this is tremendously useful because when you're trying to look around in 4D, it's like nothing makes sense, but then you switch it to volume view because everything's flat. You can kind of see like, oh, the hole's over there. I just need to like hit it around that thing. And then you go back into the sort of ground view, and it's like you see the direction that you're supposed to hit it in. So it's very useful for navigation. Now, 4D shapes are also pretty wild. Here we have a 4D cube that's displaying a phenomenon that we don't have in 3D, which is called a dual rotation, where you're rotating in 2 planes at once. And this thing is showing off a little projection. So you see this kind of trace of something that it's growing into and back out of. It's a projection of all of the stuff that you don't see in your current 3D slice. And then the solid color is what's in your current 3D slice. All of this, super confusing, I know. But it helps you make a little bit more sense of what's coming towards the end. So what we've been doing so far is experimenting. This is, again, art of the possible. This is not how the game is going to look. But, we started out by making some enemies. or friends, if you will. So we booted up some 3D game, tried to make the assets, and then we figured out, well, there's no good way of making 4D shapes, because all of the tools are made for 3D, they're not made for 4D. So we had to get pretty creative. And in the start, things looked pretty basic. We're, about 40 years of game development behind, the state of the art. But from these humble beginnings, we actually we managed to experiment with the format of the fourth dimension and four-dimensional gameplay. And one of the interesting things that we added was W targeting. W targeting is a way to help people navigate the fourth dimension in a similar way to what Z targeting did in Ocarina of Time back in the day. Because people weren't used to playing in 3 dimensions. Well, people aren't used to, now they are, but they're not used to playing in 4 dimensions. So we're introducing these helper functions that will actually help people figure out how to navigate 4D. So here you can see the W targeting in action. So when it pushes a button, he locks onto the enemy. So you don't have to worry about the 4D rotations and all of this stuff when you're actively trying to chase something down or move away from it. It will sort out that. So it aligns your 3D slice with the point of interest that you're pointing at. So towards the very end, I have a gameplay trailer of what we have so far. We have an executable, so if you would go by the booth, you can actually play this yourself and try your hand at 4D rotations and figure out just how difficult it actually is. But as we were doing this, as we were experimenting and putting this together, we kind of started unlocking bit by bit the intuition for how to do interesting things. So that's what we did here. What you're going to see here, again, not how the final game is going to look, probably not how it's going to feel either, but it's a taste of what 4-dimensional gameplay can look like. When you really get going, we added a bunch of chaos, we added a bunch of things in there, so it's not going to be quite as noisy when you play it. But this is a pretty interesting view of the 4th dimension. But the intuition that you build, one of the clips that you'll see in here is actually a part of a platformer, where you have to, when you're jumping, you have to rotate the 4th dimension to get the platform under you before you land. And when I saw that, when I understood that Stan was able to do that, one of the guys from Ikigai that has helped put this thing together, I was like, okay, yeah, we're onto something. This actually has some real potential. So without further ado, thank you. So there's still a long way to go on this, but it's an incredibly exciting experiment that we're doing, and there's so much more to come. So thank you very much for joining me today. If there's anything, feel free to contact me on my email. It's on there. And with that said, thank you very much.
Enjoying Rare Evo? Then lock in your spot for next year right now. Rare Evo 2026 is already in the works, and it's going to be even bigger. More chains, more builders, more connections. Tickets are live. Go to rareevo.io/2026 to grab your early access pricing before it's gone. Don't wait. Be first. Be part of what's next. We'll see you at Rare Evo 2026.